Some men abuse the trust and vulnerability of their daughters, nieces and cousins. They defile the teens, leaving them wallowing in trauma, stigma and shame.
Cases of fathers and uncles defiling their daughters and nieces are high in Trans Nzoia County.
Elizabeth, not her real name, says her estranged husband has been sexually molesting their 4-year-old son whenever he has the boy for weekend visits.
A 47-year-old man from Kagambwa village in Gatondo North, Kiambu County, is in custody after he allegedly impregnated his 15-year-old daughter.
Mimi nilishikwa ni baba yangu na akaniambia nisiseme hii mambo kwa sababu nikisema naweza kufa, na sikusema hiyo mambo, lakini hapa mwisho nilikuja nikaambia mama yangu.
Venye huyo kazi wangu alinirape, nikaenda nikaambia wazazi wangu. Kwa kwanza nikaambia mama yangu kwa sababu ndiye alikuwa mtu wangu wa karibu. Sikuona amefanya chochote. Nikaenda nikaambia baba yangu kusikia hivyo, yeye badala solve na huyo kazini wangu ama aende aripoti polisi, yeye akaita tu mkutano ya familia. So watu wote walikuwa side ya huyo mrapist, mimi nikabaki peke yangu. Wakasema niende niolewe na huyo kazini wangu.
Ango akawa ananifuatilia, tukakuwa na uhusiano na yeye kwa mapenzi. Venye tulikuwa na uhusiano na yeye, nikapata bora. Antu maisha ni hadi paka unakata unajiuliza sijui jiue.
Incest is prevalent in society, yet it is a taboo that many are not willing to discuss. And when spoken of, it is done in hushed tones, especially among families with known victims. This contributes significantly to more cases of blood relatives committing atrocities against children.
When it's incest, because then it's within a family setting, you'd find that sometimes it's repeated violence. So then the child is also threatened, they're not able to share. They're actually even confused because this is someone who's supposed to protect them.
First, we need to understand, when we talk about incest, what is incest by itself? If you go to section 20 and 21 of the Sexual Offences Act, number 3 of 2006, it defines incest by a male person or by a female person as follows. Any person who commits an indecent act or an act which causes penetration with a female person who to his knowledge is a daughter, a granddaughter, a sister, mother, niece, or grandmother, is guilty of an offense termed incest. And such a person is liable for a term of not less than 10 years.
Incest is actually a vice. And if you can go to the scriptures, be reading from the book of Leviticus, chapter number 18, from verse number 6 to verse number 17. None of you shall approach anyone who is near or kin to him to uncover his nakedness. I am the Lord.
What is interesting is that whereas this was forbidden from a religious perspective, scientifically, having relationship with a person who is related to you has also its own consequences. In fact, even in animals, we are told you should not allow animals to inbreed. So it is not just a religious thing. It is actually a biological thing. It has its own effects.
Why has incest grown? It's actually spreading in the society in Kenya. There are so many reasons. One of them is because of family ties. So you leave the child with a grandfather. Those should be safe hands. We leave the child with uncle and cousin. So because of this trusting nature of us, unaachia mtoto mtu wa nyumbani without so many questions. And I like the story of David's children in the Bible. Amnon developed incestuous tendencies. And if someone watched Amnon, they would have noted Amnon has incestuous tendencies.
Most of these cases are highly contributed by poverty, most families today are living below the poverty line. And also drugs and substance abuse. Most parents in the urban setup, especially those living in vulnerable communities like slums and the rural areas, and also the cultural practices of some of the communities.
One of the root causes of incest is addiction to pornography. Because when you try to get into the mind of the perpetrator, what makes a man look at his daughter as a woman, 8-year-old child, 3-year-old child, is because he's been twisted. And what has twisted his mind? Addiction to pornography.
Why do it on younger people? I think it's an act of being a coward. It's an act that makes you are not man enough to really approach other women. Now you're taking advantage of young girls who cannot say no just because you have money, just because maybe you're able to create threats.
So incest happens even in the perfect homes. But in those perfect homes, the desire to remain perfect in the public eye is more than for a person who is even in the low socioeconomic status. The desire for a family that has honor within the community, if it's a religious family or people who are wealthy, to not talk about an element within their household that is a cause of shame is higher. And that's what we must break the silence about.
We talk about the girl child here and how that girl child is so vulnerable in the hands of people. You don't know who to trust anymore. Who has destroyed us? Who has taken away the morals? Who has crushed the fiber that we stand on? Sometimes it's our own self. When you go to church and programs are there, they are not tied to building a foundation and strengthening the male child who is the perpetrator. Because where is the money? The money is in the girl child, because the girl child for over the years been molested, been put to shame. The boy child begins to take his rightful position and authority to destroy the rival.
Statistics from Kenya's national GBV hotline 1195 shows that incest is a significant problem. The data reveals that 106 girls were sexually molested in their homes between January 2018 and June 2021, with the highest number of 59 reported occurrences perpetrated by fathers. Other infractions occurred in the bushes, a public space, and an unknown location, for a total of 160 documented occurrences of incest.
Talking about statistics, you need to understand this as what we usually have in our police records is a small fraction of all the cases that take place in this country. There are so many other cases that happen and they are never reported. The record that we have is already scary.
Last year, there was a lot of hue and cry that because of the lockdown due to COVID, that was 2021, the teenage pregnancy has gone up.
So the biggest question was, who is sleeping with these women, with these girls? And it became very clear that it had to be a family member. When more investigations was done, it was found that it is true that we have a lot of incest in this country. And it is so colossal, but what fuels it is silence, stigma, shame, and the people who keep quiet about it.
Most incest cases occur at home, with fathers as the most common offenders who frequently perpetrate the heinous act at home, a place meant to provide safety for a child.
The family is the bedrock of society, and the father is supposed to be the protector, the provider, the one who affirms the children. He's the keeper of the moral code in the family. And protection is number one. And so now what we have is the protector becoming the perpetrator.
How does a man in his right mind decide he's going to sleep with his 10-year-old?
Most of them will say that it happened with trusted family members. when they were small. Either their parents were busy at work and they left them with their uncle, or they visited their cousins, and the cousins or the uncles or even their fathers seduced them. Some could actually be seduction, so that small girl, a 10-year-old or even 5-year-old or 6-year-old, is seduced with some goodies. It could be as basic as a sweet.
The victims suffer in silence as the people they trust, close relatives who ought to protect them, turn them into sex tools while enjoying the family's protection.
But this girl, she was only 7 years old. So that means she began being abused when she was much less younger. And it was by the father and the grandfather. And the effects of this abuse, besides the ones that we know would come because of sexual abuse, were so extreme that they triggered diabetes in this young girl. So from the age of 4, 5, that's when the father and the grandfather started abusing her. The stories are many, thinking of this other girl who was being abused by the father because the father lied to her. The doctor had said that he needs to check if the daughter has gotten well. So he would beat her, spank her to unconsciousness, and then, just sleep with her, have sex with her. The last few days before she was rescued, he would do it from about midnight to 6:30 in the morning, and then tell her, blame her for what he did. You tell her, it's you who has made me do this.
You've had really horror stories, like the 11-year-old girl at the coast who was actually defiled by her father. And the girl went to report to her mother. So she ended up being beaten by both parents. And then so she kept quiet and she got pregnant twice. The father made her have 2 abortions. The 3rd time when she got pregnant, the teachers noticed that her stomach was growing and then suddenly it wasn't growing. So the teacher asked her what was going on. And she said, this is my 3rd time to have an abortion, and my mom got rid of the baby because I think it was a big baby. And so the girl was rescued.
So we've had a child as young as 3 days old coming as an incest survivor and getting that medical treatment. So that can either be as an outpatient or as an inpatient, depending on the severity of the injuries. Important to mention that when it's incest, because then it's within a family setting, you'd find that sometimes, and it's repeated violence. So then the child is also threatened, they're not able to share. They're actually even confused because this is someone who's supposed to protect them. So there are a lot of, would I say, variables that come into play in terms of the reporting. And sometimes you have what you call late presentation. So you'll have a child who's been abused over and over, and sometimes even conditioned, sometimes even given gifts and all that. So they're all confused and wondering even who to report to.
A young girl comes up to me after a weekend challenge and she tells me, "Hi, Pastor Sammy, I need help. I want out." Why? Because she's having sexual relationship with people that are of the same bloodline. Her father, uncle, and cousins. It even went up to grandfather. And the girl was seeking help. That girl, by the grace of God, the Lord rescued her from that.
We have had a girl who was made pregnant by her father. And when the girl told the mother and the father talked and gave her other a beating. Told her, never tell anybody. She was 10.
One young lady, university student, who was crying in my office because her uncle had sexually molested her. She was indisposed, she was helpless, she had some injury, and he took advantage of her. And that was really sad. She was all in tears. The Lord is good. We were able to walk with her until a place where she received some healing. Case, a stepfather, so to speak, involved in a very bad situation with the girls who had come with the wife he had married. Very, very painful situations that happened.
When the mother got to know that the child was defiled, she did not safeguard the partner. She took a step and she took her daughter to Nairobi Women's for gender services and also for some counseling. But now, due to this trauma, the girl is unable to concentrate in school, and every time she's informed that this is the age where they are reading set books in school, she actually explained that there's a certain set book they're learning in school and there's a girl who is being raped severally. So these traumas and the past experience, they keep occurring to her, and the more she thinks that she does not deserve to be in this life.
I've had cases outside Now Destiny where a child tells you, my mother told me she's the one who will kill me if I said what daddy did to me. So this child will never talk about it. And that is why the daddy will continue doing it in the house. When it comes out, it will be too late. And it destroys the emotional bit and the psychological bit of these children, because it is not easy. According to the cases I have handled, it's not easy for the children to go through it.
When a grandfather, father, uncle, brother, or cousin exploits the girls they are supposed to protect, and the family turns a blind eye to protect the perpetrator rather than the victim, the abused suffer even more trauma because they must continue to live under the same roof and with the same conditions as the abusers. These circumstances create a vicious cycle of continued abuse that increase their traumatic experiences as they struggle to integrate into society due to shame, guilt, and stigma, especially for those who become pregnant as a result of the encounter.
How does the cycle continue? Intimidation and fear. And that cycle will go on. Intimidation and fear. Why? This person is providing a shelter for you. This person is providing food. This person is providing your basic needs. This person is meeting your school fees need. They intimidate you. They make you fearful. And now you're not able to speak out. When somebody is exposed at an early age to sex and they don't get help, they become accustomed to it. It becomes casual. It loses meaning. And that girl, you destroy her self-worth. That's what happens when somebody now just gives of themselves. Because at the beginning, what did we do? We destroyed their self-worth. And they look at themselves as invaluable. And they'll give themselves left, right, and center.
And the psychological is actually more traumatic. I've seen survivors who were abused 10 years ago, 15 years ago when they're young, and now they're adults and it's affecting them. I've seen women who've gotten married and they're saying it's now hard for them to relate, even sexually with their partners, because they're telling you about a defilement case that happened, ways ago. I've seen a 23-year-old who came to the hospital with the father, and that's the time he had just told the father that he had been abused when he was much younger.
Some of the people who have gone through incest, they are not good socially. They don't interact. They can't trust people. It also goes with issues of hopelessness. To the extent it has actually led to high cases of depression. You find actually we have many young people, especially those who have gone through incest, who are suffering from depressive thoughts and depression, and what you may call, mental sickness. The pain is there for whichever case because it's an abuse.
Incest, especially as a crime against children, has a long-term devastating effect because these people stay in the child's life. So as a child grows up and becomes mature, they realize the crime that happened to them, especially with those from a father or a person close to them, and they begin to have this form of hatred about those people.
On these premises, The PLMT, Protecting Life Movement Trust's Stop Incest Campaign, makes a bold attempt to expose and rally action against the growing number of unreported incestuous relationships in Kenya, while seeking justice for victims of the rare cases that feature in the local media and justice system.
We said we cannot keep quiet while this is happening, because who is this girl safe with? Who is that young boy safe with? If the insecurity starts from the home, where does it go?
To achieve its goals, PLMT collaborates with Kenya Police and other entities of goodwill such as the GVRC.
Mainly do is medical treatment for survivors of gender-based violence. So we provide medical treatment, psychosocial support at no cost to the survivors, but at a cost to GVRC. So we have different partners who support us with this. We also do community awareness or primary prevention across the country, where then we create awareness, sensitization, we enhance capacities of different service providers in relation to gender-based violence, and also try to influence practices, laws, and policies across the country.
Relevant ministries and Christian institutions to advocate for an end to incest and its eradication from society.
People we have interacted with in terms of partnership for this particular campaign. We have talked to the NCCK as being the umbrella body of the Protestant churches. We have talked with the KCCB of the Catholic Church. We have talked to the EAK, Evangelical Alliance of Kenya. When we realized that the entry point would have to be the education sector, we went to the Kenya National Union of Teachers, and they were so good that they even gave us two of their senior officers to work with us for this campaign so that they can disseminate whatever information we have had. We talked to the TSC, Teacher Service Commission. We got the same support. The then Cabinet Secretary of the Ministry of Education, Dr. Ruto, we had dialogue with her. In fact, she had said, you people, can you bring the content so that we see how do we structure the work in such a way that the campaign can become very effective nationally. We have had some corporates, like the Cooperative Bank of Kenya has supported us financially in the preparation of this content formulation. National Syndemic Disease Control Council. This is what used to be National AIDS Council. So we have partnered with them and told them the GBV, the worst GBV that a child can get is actually incest. So they go from county to county, having barazas of what they call gatekeepers of the society.
The triple threat is a national campaign that we are undertaking. And the campaign is about looking at a layered challenge of HIV, sexual and gender-based violence, and adolescent and child pregnancies.
The reason we are trying to address these three issues as connected or layered is because all the three challenges are, first of all, they are moral issues for the society. Secondly, they involve criminal activities. And thirdly, they are also prevalent, and we tend to have normalized the situation. So what we are doing now is to embed accountability back to the family unit, back to the community, back to the other stakeholders around our community, including religious leaders, including civil society, including the government administration. And that's why we are calling it a whole government approach to an issue that we all seem to most often become bystanders.
In a 3-year study to assess the prevalence of incest in Kenya and uncover incest occurrences among children under the age of 18 in all counties between 2018 and 2020, a total of 660 cases were documented, with 67 males and 593 females affected. In 2018, 237 cases were reported. 178 cases were reported in 2019, while 2020 saw the highest number with 245 reported cases. Within the 3 years, 3 counties reported the highest number of cases: Makueni with 67, Homabay with 50, and Laikipia with 47 reported cases.
The cases of incest seems to be rising. If you check the data that was there for 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021, the cases seems to be increasing, and that's why we need to stop it.
Consequently, the PLMT established a rescue center to host such victims, assisting them to deal with the consequences of abuse and incest.
Na kwa ajili ya nyumba kufunguliwa juu ya hao wasichana wale wamepata changamoto huko mtaani ama kwa familia, sana sana wale wasichana defiled na incest, ndio hii nyumba ilifunguliwa, na tunaendelea. Tumeona Mungu hapo tumefika kwa hii nyumba vile ilifunguliwa. Tumesaidia wasichana wengi, more 200 and above.
The institution also assists girls who become pregnant as a result of sexual abuse, some of whom are persuaded or driven to procure abortions when they discover they are pregnant by a relative who abused them. Those who seek refuge at the PLMT Rescue Center are supported throughout their pregnancies and assisted to give up their babies for adoption, allowing them to return to school and reintegrate into society.
Rescue Kyoto. It's what we do is now bring in girls who have been thrown away, and we give them first and foremost accommodation. We give them a lot of counseling. Because we are Christians, we make them trust God, because even if the whole world reject you, God doesn't reject you, and tell them to know that just having a baby is not the end of the world. And then we teach them life skills, we give them skills in life, we facilitate antenatal care and delivery.
Empowering women economically is an excellent place to start, since it gives them a voice and options that allow them to adequately protect their children. As a result, when their husbands, who are usually the breadwinners, assault their daughters, they can stand up for them and keep them away from their abusers without fear of losing their ability to support the family.
Many times the mothers are not empowered to speak because many times the father is the sole breadwinner in the family, and she is also not emotionally empowered. She might be financially empowered, but she's not emotionally empowered because she wants to also keep the name in the family, the good name. But is there any such thing as a good name left after something like that happens?
Society must safeguard children from all forms of abuse, including sexual assaults by a stranger or relative.
We need to have deep reflection as a society in terms of the moral decadence that we are seeing across the society. People who care needs to lead in that values, where we start championing about what is right and not be apologetic about it.
The Nyumba Kumi people should be very active in checking what is happening in these homes. The teacher in school. The teacher has picked this many times. Can we be more keen if we find children withdrawn?
Teachers spend a lot of time with children. They get to understand their characters. So once a particular child's character changes, they're able to know. And most of these cases, the first people that realize the girls are pregnant are the teachers, because they're able to establish that this person is behaving differently.
The religious leaders could also do a little bit more by checking how the members of their religious organizations are doing.
The church needs to know itself and to know their mandate, and therefore, and take the bull by the horns. Be innovative, initiate programs that would help the young men to understand life, which is Bible-based.
To eliminate incest, which is a direct violation of God's instructions, and heal the land from its consequences, pastors, other religious leaders, teachers, and parents should collaborate and determine the right mechanisms to speak against and eliminate the vice, thus ensuring that children are protected to live holistically.
We have to preach the gospel that you are so precious, valuable, and priceless. No one has the permission to tamper with your body.
But the girl child herself, needs to be encouraged to amplify her voice and speak out.
Recommendation would be that every county should come up with a rescue center where all these people who are going through all these social injustices can be taken in.
By speaking out and joining advocacy efforts to end incest, we can diminish the damage it brings to communities and lower the number of pariah children born as a result of incest.
So I'm asking, if the society knows it's a taboo, why don't they stop this taboo behavior and action before it brings a pregnancy? So the society has to wake up, and everybody has to wake up. We have to realize that we are being hypocritical by not addressing this issue. And that's why our organization has said it has to be tackled.
Children spend the majority of their time in school, church or mosque, and at home. Teachers and parents should therefore teach and guide them on boundary setting while providing space for discourse so that the children can share their life experiences.
And I would also want to urge parents to talk to their children and talk openly. And sometimes be very careful on who you bring on board. And let this child from a very early age, because they can be taught from any age according to their understanding. Let this girl know that there are parts that are not supposed to be touched. Let them know this is your uncle. Let them know this is your cousin. Let them know that even if your father touches you, you need to talk about it. And also protect these children.
Our kindergarten teachers, our ECD teachers are actually doing a fantastic job. Why? Because there's a song they teach children about understanding their reproductive areas. And they sing, "These are my private parts, private parts, private parts. These are my private parts. No one should touch them." So children are growing up with that conscience that these are my private parts and no one should touch them, including your parent or your sibling. This is my body. No one should see your nakedness, including your sibling or your parent. So I think there's been such great awareness, and our young children, our teenagers, are aware and alive to the fact of incest.
Together, we can stop incest. Speak up, be heard, ongea, usikike. We say no to incest.